Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Rally DNA podcast in association with Slip and Grip Automotive. You're joining us for episode 3 of season 4. I'm Killian Cronin, and joining me once again is Jamie Arkle and Adam Towler. Chaps, how are you guys doing, and what have you been up to lately?
Very well, thanks, mate. Very well. Busy. Busy at work, messing around with old cars and preparing to get my old Celica on the road for summer. I'm sure I'm not alone in appreciating that first glimmer of spring that we appear to be getting in the evenings now. And so it's re-energized me to start messing around with old cars for fun and the prospect of car shows and pub beer gardens and all that good stuff. So it tempers the pain of having to lie underneath a near 30-year-old Group A car to get covered in grime.
You love it, Jamie. Come on, don't try and make out that that's a bad thing.
I love the after effects. I'm not.
Same here, really. Been pretty busy writing about Porsches a lot lately for some reason, it seems. So, had my had plenty of that to write and to research, which has been good. And unlike Jamie, I've not been getting my 205 GTI ready, which is very poor show. So I need to improve that by the next time we speak, don't I, really?
I didn't know you had a 205 GTI. Is it a 1.6 or a 1.9?
That's you didn't know because it hasn't moved for so long, Jamie. It's literally disappeared off the face of the earth. Well, now look. Now you're going to ask that. You've asked the
MI16.
You've asked the question, and I know when I say the answer that one of you is going to go, oh, but is it not the purest choice though? It's a 1.9, and I don't want to hear any nonsense. I don't want to hear the words sweeter about or anything like that. It's a non-sunroof 1.9 and very lovely it is. Well, it was once lovely. It was probably lovely 30-something years ago, whenever it was. What would it be? 20. Yeah. How old is it now? Gosh. Yeah, over 30, nearly 35 years, isn't it? Yeah. It's 89 car, so.
89, wow. God, 35 years.
So that would that be one with the cat or without the cat?
Oh, no, it's without the cat.
The cat. The cat's 93, isn't it? Or at least legal.
Yeah, kind of. I think sort of 93 model year, so very late 92. At that point the 1600 died and the 1.9 got a cat, and that's quite a different car. It's got much more sophisticated engine management system on it and a chunk less power. Although, to be fair, I don't know whether the original ones actually produced anywhere near what they're supposed to claim they are. Or maybe 1 in 20 did. But it does. The cat one has a bit less power. But mine's a completely analog driving machine. So no power steering, no ABS.
What colour?
Nothing, really. Red.
Lovely.
So it has to be either red or white for me. So
I'd have a green one. I'd have a green one.
Is that turquoise? That turquoisey green?
No, the dark one.
What's
Sorrento.
What's the turquoisey green?
Sorrento.
Laser.
I love that. Always.
Laser green is really that's cool on the late ones. The late ones rust more though, I think. So perversely, you tend to see less. Guys, getting really geeky now. I love it.
Yeah.
Getting. It's definitely one of those cars that I wished I'd jumped on earlier in my driving career when they were still maybe not 10 a penny, but certainly just an older hot hatch as opposed to a proper appreciating / proper classic now.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I suppose all generations probably say this, and I'm sure there's people listening who grew up with Mark II Escorts and cannot believe what's happened with the prices of those. And it's just the same with this kind of era of car as well. And now, of course, it's the same with the 90s era and into the early noughties, I think, as well. You look at some of the prices of those cars, they've gone crazy. But certainly, because there were so many sold, that they used to be virtually worthless. I mean, I remember when £2,500 bought you something really, really special. By the time I bought mine, I paid similar, and it was a bit rough, but they still hadn't gone too crazy. Now, of course, they're worth a lot more.
I
Yeah,
imagine the twin riggers of being at the forefront of both a sort of modified car culture for the best part of 15, 20 years and motorsport use must have thinned the ranks quite a lot.
Well, it has, but that's the thing, because I mean, I'm ashamed to say I can't quote you the exact numbers off the top of my head. I should be able to, but I can't quote you the sales figures for them. But it was absolutely enormous. You know, they sold so many of them. So you're quite right. They're so ubiquitous in motorsport, in racing and rallying, and then the modified scene. And you'd think there'd be none left, but surprisingly there are quite a lot left. You know, and the other thing is with them, although the interiors are quite fragile, they are really strong cars. And they don't rust either. You know, I mean, as I said earlier, the later ones do. They were built in a different factory. They were built in Spain, and they had perhaps not such liberal sealant applied. But the ones built in France were generously protected, and yeah, they're nothing like as rusty as you'd think they would be.
And that surprises me actually. I thought the Rat would have claimed quite a few of them.
I think if they've had accident damage, probably yes,
which I'm sure plenty did.
And I'm absolutely, yeah, I think we can say without any question that many have, and it's not hard to see why when you drive one.
Yeah,
I always find it weird when you can sort of or interestingly, you can sort of there's certain models of car or even years in a model where a manufacturer made an ill-advised decision about rust proofing or car manufacturer, and it shows in the thinned out ranks. Like I think there's Mark III Escorts, of course, are rust like no one's business, but I think there's like 82 or 83 where they decided to buy lots of cheap Soviet steel and just non-existent, you know. Cavalier Commanders, Mark II Cavalier Commanders spent like 6 months parked in a field up to their sills in wet grass before they were sold, and so they never go. Anyway, I can't start talking about Vauxhall special editions and dealer special editions on this podcast already. It's
an entirely different podcast.
You're taking it to a dark place, Jamie.
I like Mark II Cavaliers.
You can be forgiven for that.
Okay, a Ascona C.
Yeah, well, I'm no stranger to rust at the moment. My Impreza is going for some body work and painting in the next few weeks as well, because that has a few rust spots, as they tend to do. Although the underneath is reasonably strong. It's just outer sills and the old arch bubbling, the nemesis of any classic Impreza. But it's overall, it's pretty good. So I'm looking forward to getting that also on the road for the summer. So maybe by the end of May, that should be ready. It needs a bit of work with new calipers and a few bits reconditioned in terms of other components underneath as well. But yeah, not a huge pile of work to do, but I'm looking forward to getting it out, chasing a few rallies over the summer, hopefully doing a bit of spectating, or maybe if we're doing another few rallies in the next few months, might get it out to do a bit of recce in it as well. But although I won't be driving it then if we're doing recce, so I don't know how I'd feel about that.
It'd be great to see it out and about. That'd be somebody, you know, you talked about the corrosion. Somebody said to me the other day, it's something to do with the screw in the rear, in the construction of the rear arches. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I know where my one has rotted. There's a rear arch stone protector. It's a piece of plastic about 3 inches long by half an inch that slots in just behind the rear passenger door, in front of the rear arch, and they tend to fall out. And there's one was in place on my car, and on the other side it's missing. So there's 2 holes, and it just fills with mud and grime and everything, and just eats it from the inside out. So maybe that's the one. And it basically rots the sill underneath the passenger door then on the arch. Yeah. But that wasn't present on a lot of the Japanese models. So those ones tend to hold up a bit better in that particular place, but succumb to it in other places as well.
Yeah. What a shame. Talking of that, I know we talked earlier about going around about what we'd read and what we'd seen this week, and that makes me think of what I'd seen. The YouTube recommendation of the week or whatever has got to be, and I know you know what I'm going to say, that Passat's the Canto video of McRae on the 96 Rally Catalunya.
In N1 WRC, the
N1
peak
WRC.
Group A Impreza.
Oh, that is honestly, anyone listening who hasn't seen that, you have to. Well, you have to subscribe to that channel because it's absolutely phenomenal, and they have this incredible. For people that don't know, they seem to have this archive or official rights to this Telesport archive, and so they put some good ones up since. I don't know whether you saw the one that went up very recently. That may well also be well up your Strasser. But the Impreza one is wow. Yeah. And it's like they must have had about 30 cameras on the stage.
There's loads of different corners, yeah.
There's so many different angles. It's absolutely amazing. So,
and they seem to have a knack. Like there's a lot of old rally footage on YouTube, obviously, but whatever sort of gloss or sheen these guys manage to do to when they're kind of remastering it, it seems to step above a lot of the other ones I find. It looks really, really good, and they just looking 3 hours ago. Panizzi and Delacour and 306 Maxi 3 hours ago. Yeah, so that's one for me later once we conclude this. Oh yeah, no, they're doing the Lord's work. That channel has to be said. They're right up there.
They are very good. They are very, very good indeed. And I think, well, it was TV, I guess, broadcast quality when it was new, wasn't it? That footage. So it really shows, compared with amateur footage. So yeah, it's glorious. If you haven't seen it, everyone, make sure you watch that.
Definitely. I missed the large number of exterior cameras in modern WRC coverage. I like onboards, but it's no substitute for multiple sketchy angles. As far as I'm concerned, it sort of makes it a little bit more visceral.
Yeah. Well, what's happened to them all? Why is that?
Is the Spectator doing too much work for them now with camera phones and things? So there's enough content going out elsewhere. Do they feel the need that they can stick to the onboards and helicopter shots? And I'm sure cost comes into it as well, of course. But if there's enough content promoting the brand coming from the fans, do they feel the need to have less cameras out there? Someone from the WRC can get in touch and tell me I'm wrong, but because there's too much sketchy footage from some of those guys as well, from standing in the wrong place, which
wait till we get back to Poland.
Yes. Hopefully that's a little more tame than it has been in the past.
We can live in hope.
Probably should look forward to the first round of the BRC as well.
Yeah, this coming Sunday, if you're listening to this the week of its release, we've got that's really shaping up to be very strong. Really worth covering all of its own, perhaps after the event. But really strong entry in the top category, and it could be it's very hard to pick a winner really from that list. But Northwest Stages, I suppose it's new to a few of those guys as well. I know Keith Cronin hasn't done it before, although he has obviously a lot of experience in the championship, and he's extremely match fit given he's had a couple of wins on the bounce now in the Irish Championship. So he should be one to watch. But then, of course, we've got the debut of the Yaris as well with Melvin Evans Motorsport. So that'll be very interesting to see. And of course, in the Castrol colours.
And ITV4 coverage on telly as well.
Yes.
So all good news.
Free-to-air coverage of rallying back again. Yeah.
Get in. All we need now is propaganda by Jewel, and we're jeweled by propaganda. Have I got it the wrong way?
Oh, yeah, it's very, very nostalgic. There we are. Yeah. I wonder if Tony Mason's still got it in him.
But before we get to covering some BRC action, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point in the very near future, the focus of this week's episode is a special guest in the form of Lewis Allen, an engineer at Toyota Gazoo Racing and the lead engineer of the Yaris Rally2 program. So I'm sure he can shed some light on that car that's gone over to the UK. Welcome along, Lewis, to Rally DNA. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. It's great to have you on.
Hello, thank you very much for the invite. It's nice to be here and to meet everyone.
So I suppose it'd be a good place to start. I suppose give us an indication of what your current role is and where you're working for the moment.
Yeah, so currently I'm working for Toyota Gazoo Racing Finland, so World Rally team. Let's say for the last 2 years I've been working on the Rally2 project. So I've been leading the development on that side. So I've kind of followed the car in its infancy from kind of being a almost nothing, let's say, to the final homologation, and now being within the customer's hands. So that's my current role at the moment, and obviously that kind of continues now that the car has been released to continue to make it faster and to move forward with the project.
And when did you decide to get into motorsport originally, Lewis? Did you always have a plan to get into this sort of work, or were you interested in cars and motorsport from an early age, or was it something you kind of got into along the way when you were studying?
Yeah, so let's say a bit my story is a bit like everyone. I'd say we all had a passion for motorsport when we were young, and especially rallying. And I remember standing in the forest in Wales when I was younger, watching rally cars go by and certain drivers go by, and I always said, okay, I want to work in that industry, and that's what I want to do when I was older. And again, I also had a passion for engineering, so I said, okay, if I can combine the two, it would be great. But I remember being a young lad thinking, well, to be some kind of rally engineer, there's probably not so many jobs in the world, so it'd be quite tricky to arrive to that point. But yeah, I just then started to find the path about how to arrive there. So let's say skip the school years. I went to university then in Liverpool, but at that moment I kind of studied, let's say, straight mechanical engineering instead of, let's say, specializing into anything else. But again, still working part-time as, let's say, mechanics in a race team and helping friends on rallies and even some co-driving at some point. And then I'd say I was quite lucky straight out of university. I almost got my dream job, you could say, at that time, as a junior designer in M Sport. So at 21, then I left university and I went to work in Cumbria, which is where I stayed for 6 years. So during my time in M Sport, let's say, I was involved in all sorts of different projects, and I began as a junior designer, as I explained, and then I kind of worked my way up. And I'd say M Sport's a fantastic place for any young person really to join, because you kind of get big responsibilities for, let's say, quite little experience. And you get chucked in at the deep end on many things, and it's kind of sink or swim. And I think that's quite a great thing, really. And especially in motorsport in general, it's difficult to get those kind of experiences kind of at such a young age, let's say. So it's quite a nice circle for me because, like I said, I was 21 and designing the original Mark 1 Fiesta R5, let's say, as kind of a junior designer, some obviously basic parts when you very first begin. So to then, let's say, where are we now? Almost 12 years later, let's say, coming onto another Rally 2 car is quite nice. So yeah, I was in M Sport, then junior designer, working on Rally 2, well, R5 as it was then, some Fiesta WRC stuff. Then we actually did a Bentley GT3 car in M Sport at that time, and some rallycross cars and different bits. But again, my passion was always to be, let's say, an engineer or a rally engineer on event, following the developments of cars, working with the drivers, etc. So I managed to work my way up after about 2 years, let's say, in the design office to become, let's say, kind of junior engineer. And again, as I said, M Sport's a great place because they kind of throw you in at the deep end. So I remember I was 20, how old would I have been? 23, 24. And my first rally was with Henning Solberg in a WRC Fiesta, and I had like no experience really. And it was kind of like, right, off you go. That's your driver, that's your car, that's the mechanics, etc. Like, go for it. So, and again, it's like sink or swim. So, and it just went from there really. So the first couple of years, first years, let's say, I was working with more customer drivers, you could say, in M Sport. Mainly like Henning Solberg, and there was some other drivers on the odd event. And in 2015, I was with Robert Kubica for the year. If you remember, he did like a season, let's say his final full season in WRC, with a 2015 spec WRC Fiesta. And again, that was quite a nice story because I worked on the design of that car, let's say, a year or two previously, and then I went to run it as an engineer. So that was a kind of a nice story in that side. So I worked with him for the year in his, let's say, small team that he built, using, let's say, myself as an engineer from M Sport, a couple of mechanics from M Sport, and then some of his own guys. We made like a small team of ourselves. And then, like I said, I worked with him for the year in his, let's say, small team that he built, using, let's say, myself as an engineer from M Sport, a couple of mechanics from M Sport, and then some of his own guys. We made like a small team of ourselves. running the season with him. And then again, working in the Middle East and things like that during that season. Then 2016, I was moved, let's say, up to the works team, you could say, or the main team. And I was running Mads Osberg for that year, which say was the last year of that era of Fiesta, before the 17 cars came. So 2016 was super busy because we were running cars. We were quite a small team, let's say, on engineering, it's fair to say, in M Sport. So we were running cars, but we were also trying to do the development of the 17 car at the same time. And it gets quite hectic in a team when you're, let's say, doing the pre-event test, the recce, the rally, preparing the test car or the next test, plus doing development test of a new car. So it's quite hectic. Then, yeah, the end of 2017, we were doing some testing and development, and that's when we all got the phone call that Sébastien Ogier would join us for the 2017 season. And during 2017, I was then running Oit for the full season. Obviously, it was a 3-car team along with Ogier and Elfin. And then at the end of 2017, I kind of decided, right, I've achieved quite a lot here. At that moment, we'd won the championship, we'd won the drivers' championship, we'd won everything. And I kind of said, okay, not so much more for me to do here. I've enjoyed my time. So let's try and move forward. And that's when I kind of started my own company, you could say, and went out freelance, let's say, as a rally engineer, which is kind of how I'm working, let's say, almost until now. So in 2018 was my first year freelance. Let's say it was quite a successful year to begin with. I was running Lukyanok in ERC, which we won. And then we got quite a few different national championships as well down in South America, in Chile, and in Norway, and many different small drivers, let's say. And it was quite a busy year. I think I remember I did 30 rallies, something like that, without including the test, which doesn't sound a lot, but it is quite a lot of work. It's quite a lot of time away. And then when you start to work privately, you become a bit of a victim of your own success in some ways, because you can't really turn down work. So you kind of then start to be from rally to rally every single weekend, which is good. And then again in 2019, I was with Chris Ingram and some other drivers during that year in various national championships. And then let's say that continued on until the end of 2021. When I was kind of contacted by some old colleagues who were now working in Toyota, who said, look, we're looking for somebody to come and work as a rally engineer, but we don't really want to train anyone. Let's say we need somebody to just jump in and go. So can you join the team? So that's when I've now been working for Toyota then since the start of 22. So in 22, I was working on Rally 1 at the very beginning, running Ogier and the Lappi car. They shared a car during that season. And then kind of alongside that, in that moment, I also, the Rally 2 project kind of started. So I had, let's say, in some way, some eyes on that as I was also working on Rally 1. So then it got to a point where you kind of can't put 100% into both projects. So I moved, let's say, over to Rally 2 full time. And then, as I mentioned before, led the development and, let's say, the engineering side on that side of the project. And again, started that at the very beginning on my own. And then built a kind of team around me, and we started to employ more engineers and, again, people I'd worked with previously in the past, and developed the car until here we are today. And that's where I'm at the moment.
Sounds like a pretty good, successful story so far, Lewis. In fairness, you seem to have achieved quite a bit of experience in a relatively short space of time. You went straight from university into M Sport at 21. Is that unusual for an organization like M Sport to put someone into a role like that straight out of university with lack of experience, or is it, as you say, something that M Sport seem to do a bit more than others?
Yeah, I'd say M Sport seem to do that a bit more than others, and maybe times have changed a little bit now. As I said, that was 14 years ago or something like that. But it's maybe changed a little bit now. But again, as I said previously, I think that's one of the strengths and the good things, let's say, of M Sport, especially for young engineers or young mechanics or young designers or anybody that's looking to get into motorsport. I think M Sport's like a great way in. And of course, they don't accept anyone or everyone, but if you've, let's say, shown that you've got enough willing or enough experience, let's say even just working for free, and that's what I was doing when I was young, and I think that's also helped me and I would encourage any young person looking to get into motorsport is just contact a team and say, look, can I come and wash the wheels, or can I come and just be in the service area to see what goes on, or do any small job to be around rally or to be around racing or whatever you're into, basically, and get an idea about what it's about. And I think they look at that as a strong point. And again, it kind of works both ways, really, because they get a young engineer or a young designer, etc., that they can mold and make how they want. And then again, the designer or the engineer gets a lot of experience for that side. So I think it's a great place to go. And again, I think it's quite normal probably now for M Sport side, and you see it again a lot on the mechanics as well. You see a lot of mechanics, maybe they've been there a couple of months and they're then on the WRC or on the Rally 1 car or whatever, and obviously they don't just chuck anyone on. They must think that person's capable of doing it. But again, it's a great place to start, I think.
Lewis, you talked about how you did mechanical engineering at university rather than a more maybe motorsport specific course. Looking back, do you actually think that, is that a positive? Is that something that you would recommend to any youngsters wanting to get into the industry to get a more general further education like that?
Yeah, I think that was kind of my own personal decision in terms of I didn't want, let's say, it was kind of a backup in a way. Is if the motorsport dream kind of went away, then I'd still have maybe a bit more of an opportunity to go into, I don't know, oil and gas or nuclear or whatever, some other side of the industry. And again, on my side, I had quite a lot of experience privately, let's say, of motorsport or rally. So I kind of didn't feel that I needed to also be taught that side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, I'd never done motorsport degree or that kind of thing, and for sure that would have maybe even benefited me even more probably if I did do a pure motorsport degree. And to be honest, I did have to do some extra reading and extra studying to adapt myself a bit more, or to fill in some more gaps. So let's say for sure, if you can do a straight motorsport degree, it can help. But then again, as I mentioned in my personal case, and it's not the same for everyone, I felt like I didn't want to limit myself so much. So that was the decision on that side. But for sure now there's a lot of great university courses or extra courses, or in fact, another story, even myself, long story short, when I was during COVID in 2020, obviously, for people like myself, it was a complete disaster, as it was for many people. But I was kind of stuck in Chile and South America in that moment, thinking, what can I do? So I made an online motorsport course in Spanish, aimed at people in South America, at mechanics, drivers, engineers, co-drivers, trying to teach them a bit more about the sport and a bit more how professionals work, let's say. And again, there's loads of those types of courses around now, and I think it's great. And if you can, my advice is if people can afford to invest that money in themselves and expand their knowledge, then it's definitely going to help.
Your formative years at M Sport, I mean, that must have coincided with, as you said, the birth of the Fiesta R5 rally program. Did you get an inkling at the time of just how significant that car would prove to be for M Sport as a company, given it's very much proved to be the sort of bread and butter for Malcolm and co?
Yeah, I'd say that the R5 or Rally2 as it's called now, however you want to call it, I'm old school, so I still call it R5. But it's been the most successful category, obviously, that the FIA have ever put out there. Obviously, it was there to replace S2000, which in some respects was almost a dumbed down WRC car. The chassis was quite similar to WRC. It was just obviously the drivetrain and things were different. So still to run one of those cars was quite expensive and not really for let's say almost your everyman. Okay, R5 is not almost your everyman, but you understand what I mean. There was no price caps, etc. as such. So Rally 2 itself has become a great success. And I remember being in some of the initial meetings and being there with Malcolm, and he's thinking, oh, well, do I order, 50 sets of transmissions, or are we going to sell 50 cars? Or I don't know, because if you remember the S2000s, they were, again, I don't remember off the top of my head, but for sure there wasn't more than 50, if I remember. They weren't made in the hundreds, that's for sure, as individual cars. And I remember him thinking, like, oh, this is a big risk. Are we gonna sell enough, or do we order a smaller batch? And then, of course, as the car took off, everyone kind of realized how much of a success it was going to be, as a category as well. But of course, also as a Fiesta at the very beginning, yes, it was a good car, but there wasn't so much competition, is fair to say. And I think it's also fair to say that the Peugeot Citroën at that moment wasn't the best. So also M Sport did a very good job of the customer service. And again, a Rally 2 car or R5 car, it's not just about the performance. There's a massive balance of, obviously, reliability, performance, cost is the next big thing, but then also the customer experience, and the customer being able to run the car themselves, being able to contact engineers, contact sales staff, being able to buy the spare parts. And that's one side that M Sport really nailed and did very well, and they still do to this day, really. And I think that also contributed to the success of that car. But I think at the beginning, there wasn't really the inkling that it was going to be so big as it was, in fairness. And I remember in the very first meetings, looking at the very first regs, it was like, oh, well, it'll just be an R2 car, let's say the old two-wheel drive car with a four-wheel drive transmission and a few other modifications, and away we go. But of course, it was a million miles away from that. So yeah, and to see now how many cars now are running around in the world, how many manufacturers, and thousands, let's say now, of Rally 2 cars or R5 cars out there. I think it's been a super success for everyone in the industry and for the FIA, and yeah, so it's really nice to see.
Incredible. And you must have a fairly unique position of being able to have an overview of the life of the category thus far, given that you were there very much at the start and now are charged with, spearheading the development of one of the most promising Rally 2 car of the moment.
Yeah, it's been quite a nice story to follow it. And again, it's quite strange for me. Sometimes I remember designing the engine mount of the old Fiesta. I call it the old Fiesta now, but the original Mark 1 Fiesta. I remember designing the engine mount, and then I remember being somewhere in 2019 or something in South America, and I looked at one of these cars and I was like, "Oh, I designed that like 10 years ago."
Friend.
It's quite strange to see. So yeah, it's really nice to see how also the other manufacturers have come in and really started to push and make it a really competitive category. And as much to say, I think most people find the Rally 2 and R5 categories on the world stage more exciting than they do to the Rally 1 or WRC to some extent. And of course, then you have the national categories and national rallies as well, where it's been a massive success in its form over the years. And now you start to see the original Mark 1 Fiestas fall into the hands of, let's say, people who'd be running Group N Evos in the past and this kind of things, as they kind of come under £100,000. So that's also nice to see, and spare parts are still available. So yeah, it's great.
When you were, 24 and running the Henning Salberg, is it daunting for a young engineer at that age to, obviously it's been so positive, as you said, for M Sport to bring people through the ranks so quickly at a young age, but did you feel like, well, am I able for this? This is Henning Salberg, obviously has a lot of experience on the world stage. To be there at 24 running him in a world rally car, was that a daunting prospect or something that you kind of grabbed with both hands and went, yes, this is my moment now, this is what I've been working to achieve?
Yeah, it was maybe an element of that, or young and I wouldn't say young and dumb is completely the wrong, but young and enthusiastic, let's say, to just say, right, I'll go for it and I can do it, and have a lot of self-confidence. I must have at that age. Also, Henning is like, okay, he's a friend now, but he's one of the easiest people to run as well. He knows exactly what setup he wants, what clicks he wants, what diff preload he wants, and this, that, and the other. So on that side, it was also a bit more relaxed, and I could concentrate more on the data and the fuel and make sure the car's not going to stop and it's got tires, and managing the mechanics. And again, as a rally engineer, the job role, people don't realize, is quite multifaceted, and there's quite a lot of aspects to it. It's not just setup. There's quite a lot to it. So it was nice to be able to use him to gain experience in that role, and with obviously with some supervision of some more senior engineers as well, if I ever needed something. But I don't remember it being so daunting. And again, it's kind of the style of being thrown in the deep end, and you kind of sink or swim. And I think at such a young age, as I mentioned, I kind of must have had some self-confidence that I said, right, okay, I know what I'm going to do, and we went from there. I'd say it would be even in my later years where I had like even more experience that you start to say like, oh, can I do this, or do I know what I'm talking about, or what is this, or being a bit confused. And in fact, there's quite a nice little story. Is at the end of 2016 when we were in Sweden testing, actually with Tanak, testing the 2017 spec car. So it was obviously just before the season, and we just finished the day of testing, and we get a phone call from Malcolm, and he says, oh, can you gather everyone around, the mechanics and Oit and everyone? So we gathered around, and he said, oh, we have a new driver for next year, Sebastian Ogier, and he's going to be with you in the hotel tonight. So we were thinking, oh, so we were all like obviously really happy and ecstatic. And yeah, Oit was not so happy maybe, but yeah, so I remember me and a couple of the engineers, we stayed up till quite late to welcome Seb to the team, let's say, I think we were up until 2 a.m. to waiting for him to come to the reception of the hotel to kind of introduce ourselves. And then I was at the engineer the next day running him on the test, and I remember I made the setup sheet and it said like my name as the engineer and then the driver as Sebastian Ogier. I was like, this is strange. So there's maybe times like that where he said like, okay, this is a bit of a shock, but otherwise in this job role you kind of need to have some confidence and be confident that you know what you're on about and the decisions that you're making are correct, because as I said, the role is quite diverse and you need to make many decisions quite fast all the time. So it's quite easy and common to, let's say, maybe make the wrong mistake or the decision which is not optimal. So maybe I've just become a bit more normal to that now.
You talked about the importance to the category of that original Rally2 Fiesta, or Rally5 as it was. With your experience of that Rally2 world over the years, is there a car or even a manufacturer who you admire, who you think has moved the whole sort of Rally2 formula along in either just the performance of the car or even the way they treat their customers or anything? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned a bit before, I think the strongest point of M Sport is they kind of realized at the beginning that it's not just about the performance of a car, it's about the whole experience of the customer, you know, especially as a team. If you have a contract for said driver for the season and they're going to do the Irish Championship and blah, 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 or the ERC, for example, but you can't get any spare parts, it's not optimal at all. And the driver doesn't care that M Sport doesn't have the spare part. All they realize is they can't do the rally. So M Sport realized that quite early that was the really important. So I think they were always the level on that side. But then, of course, when Skoda came along, they also upped the game again themselves, and they also realized that it was big part of the game was the customer experience, and to have the parts ready and the information there and the support there. And still to this day, they have quite a lot of engineers on the rallies and at hand to help if needed. So they've kind of pushed things along their side, but also Skoda have invested a hell of a lot in their car for testing and development and reliability and durability. And I think that's also forced everybody, if they want to keep on the same level, it's fair to say, to also do the same and to spend the same money and try and make the same kind of testing. So for sure, the original testing that we did on the original Mark 1 Fiesta was nowhere near what they started to do on the Skoda, and that kind of then brought the class along. And then in some respects, you could say that the cars got more expensive to develop, for sure. Of course, the car itself's price capped and all the parts are price capped, so there's kind of not so much more to make there. But again, it's purely a manufacturer's decision about how much they want to spend on the development of the car and how they want to go about it. But for sure, I think it's fair to say Skoda pushed that along. And then when Volkswagen came, Volkswagen also then upped their game. And of course, they had many people left over from WRC side, which recently finished, and loads of good engineers and people to put those ideas on paper. And again, they developed a top car, and especially on the performance side, they kind of pushed everyone along as well. So I think it's fair to say every time a new manufacturer is kind of coming in, they are trying to look at what's been done in the past and trying to better that or to move it into the future. And I think that's also fair to say that's what we've been trying to do in Toyota also.
Regarding the 2017 cars, I mean, as a fan looking in, the excitement when, in the build up to that first 2017 season was palpable. I know that most people I know who are into rallying felt the same way. Did you feel as excited about the sort of technical engineering challenge that these new cars represented, or was it a bit of a busman's holiday, just a new car with a bit more power?
No, of course not. It's been a car that we've been working on for a long time, and I think was always a strength of M Sport previously to have a car that was fast out of the box, let's say. So the design and things was going on quite a while before, and again, the testing and development was started as early as possible with some kind of mule cars and this kind of thing. So let's say the new transmissions and new layouts and things, but in an old Fiesta body to try to prove different ideas and this kind of thing. But no, we were like completely nervous because, and I'm sure it was the same for all the manufacturers, nobody really felt 100% ready. And I think you never are when you release a new car. Rally 2 is a bit different because we had some time limit, but we kind of started early enough. But on WRC side, the regs always seem to come quite late in a way to do as much as you want to do. So I think the same as everybody else, we kind of felt a little bit, I wouldn't say unprepared, but there were some unknowns, let's say, I think is fair. And I remember actually sitting in the office on the Thursday night of Monte Carlo, watching the cars go to the first two night stages, as we'll all know. And I remember feeling nervous, as I'm sure everybody else was in our team, because we kind of didn't know what was going to happen. You don't know the performance of the car. You don't know if you've done a shit car, a good car. You don't know if the gearbox is going to fall out on the first kilometer. Like, nothing. And it's the same feeling, I'm sure, for the rest of the teams as well. There's no reference before that point as to how fast your car is going to be. It's not kind of like in Formula One where they do the testing and practice and this kind of things. Like there's none of that really. And even on the shakedown, it's not always a true representation of what the car is going to be like. So yeah, I remember we were I wouldn't say underprepared, but we thought we were underprepared, or we didn't know so much what to expect. But finally, that car ended up being obviously the fastest and the most competitive and the most reliable in that season. And I think that was one of the strongest points, was the reliability. And I think that kind of won us the championship in some ways. And again, working as a team in M Sport, let's say the resources are a lot less than what we'd have in other teams. And that means not only financial, but personnel is a lot less as well. And again, I go back to as a rally engineer, we were like one per car to do like data, tires, fuel, setup, managing the mechanics and everything else what's going on. Where in other teams, you'll have, let's say, maybe two more people doing similar jobs in that role, let's say. So there's quite a lot going on, and that's fair to say again for the mechanic side and for other areas of the team. So I still like to say what we did that year was like quite impressive on our side, and purely it was done from teamwork and reliability, to be honest.
What was it like with Ogier's arrival in 2017? Did you feel like that was something that could give such a quantifiable boost to the team, to lift the team coming into the championship? Like, I don't think it can be underappreciated what sort of a coup that was at the time, even from the outside looking in. Was there a real sense of, right, we're here, let's go now, like we've had the last few years in the championship, obviously the domination of Volkswagen previous to that. Did you guys know right out of obviously you didn't know whether the car would be competitive on the stages, but to think that, if you had got things right that with him there, the team, you could all push together to get that championship early on?
Yeah, I suppose there was an element of that, but also if you look at that year, still, okay, I'm biased, but I think it was one of the best years of rally. And if you look at every team, of course, Citroen was there as well at that time. Every team had like top drivers or drivers that could win a rally, like each rally almost,
Mm-hmm.
So, for sure, it was never going to be a walk in the park. And we never kind of thought it would be, and it wasn't really at all. But for sure, let's say again, for a relatively small team, it was a nice boost to have him there. And we learned a hell of a lot from him, of course, in many different aspects, weather and tire choice, and why do we not do it this? Why do we do it this way and not like this? And different ways of thinking and different small tricks and this kind of things, and all those small things add up to stage times, and they pull things along. And for sure, it was really valuable to learn a lot from him, and I know the other drivers did as well. But yeah, generally it was a good boost, but I wouldn't say we went straight away to say, right, we're going to win the championship in every single rally. That was never on the cards. But I can't remember the statistic now. It was a really successful year. I think I'm not 100% sure if I remember this correctly, but I'm sure we always had one car on the podium. Every driver won at least one rally, which again is like quite a nice feat to have. But there were some really nice statistics from that year. I can't remember off the top of my head. And of course, the car was quick. And I think even today, if you had those three drivers in a team, it'd be like a super team, like Elfyn, Ogier and Tanak. You take that all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, Elfyn was on D-Max back then, but still he showed pace on the rallies that he could show pace. So yeah, the car was great, and of course we continued with the budget that we had to develop it through that season and to make it as fast as possible, because you have to, especially when you're against the big giants at that time of Hyundai and Toyota and obviously Citroen. You have to keep your head above water and keep yourself moving forward. And I think probably at the beginning we were for sure out in front, I'd say, on speed. But we kind of got caught up, I would say, around the middle of the season. And then we kind of needed to do something about that. And we managed to hold on to the end. And I'll say again, I think the biggest thing was reliability. If you look back at that season, there was a lot of rallies lost by the manufacturers purely down to reliability. And I think that was one of the strongest points on our side. Of course, the speed was there well, and technically the car was good, and especially from an engineer's side, it was like probably until this day one of the most interesting cars to work on, because you had center diff to also play with, so it was another dynamic to work with, which was really interesting. So yeah, for me, there will always be the best cars, the 17 era, and for me, it's one of the highlights of my career that year, for sure. There's many small anecdotes and many stories, and yeah, I'll always remember that one.
What was it like going from M Sport going from your independent rally team engineer you were running from that to Toyota in Finland? Was it a bit of a culture shock going, from being your own boss to sort of working for a company like that?
Yeah, in some ways, I've been quite lucky. I kind of I don't live in Finland. I still based in the UK, and I travel then to do the tests and the rallies and the events as required. But yeah, you kind of go from being your own boss in a way, and going from rally to rally in the private rallies to, you might work, I don't know, 1 week in South America, but then you might not have another event for 2 weeks. So you're kind of then, I wouldn't say at home for 2 weeks, but you're 2 weeks, let's say, out from rally, where obviously now this is a bit more of a full-time job. And again, to anyone that wants to get into this kind of role, it's a lifestyle. And I think that's something really important to say and to explain is it's not a 9 to 5, for sure not. You miss many things, families and weddings and funerals and parties and all this kind of thing, because for sure you'll have some event or some rally or some test or something somewhere that you need to be. And of course that takes priority, and that's fine. And that's the choice that you make. And again, I've been doing this now a long time. So it's kind of, I couldn't go back into a normal 9 to 5 or where I need to go into an office and that kind of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the lifestyle that I could do anymore, just because it's been like this for quite a while. But for sure, it was nice to go back into a big manufacturer. And of course, let's say, again, I'm a bit biased, but I'd say the best one out there. And to see that the level that they work at compared to how we were working in M Sport, even though it was quite a few years previous, of how much more people there is, data there is, the ways of working, the information that you have during the rally, how to work during the rally, and many small things. But all these small things, again, they add up to performance, and the event preparation, I think, is something that's also really, really important, and something that people don't really consider or count on so much. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on before the event, studying previous years and what happened, and tire choices and weathers and all this kind of thing, and stage profiles, and many things that come together that help you then prepare the pre-event test, that then help you prepare the rally for tire choices, tire strategies, obviously set up strategies and what happened in previous years and what you can learn on. So a lot of a rally is actually in the pre-event prep. And again, in M Sport, we were like a very small team, and we were trying to do everything between us, from preparing the rally car for the event to doing the test, to doing the recce, to doing the rally, to all this kind of thing. Where in the Toyota or the bigger teams, there's a lot more people, so it makes it a lot more easier to cover many roles with many people, but everybody being able to do like a really thorough job in that role. And I think again, it's kind of obviously how they are working in Formula One as well. So in Formula One, they have a lot of backroom staff, but they have a lot of staff that are not at the track, but they're back at the factory analyzing live data and whatever else that they're doing. And I think in rallying, everybody's trying to work like that now as well, and trying to bring rallying to the same level. And yeah, it's quite impressive to see.
After a few years away from the works teams running independently, what was it like to come back in then with Toyota and then move to the hybrid cars versus the 17 spec cars you've previously been used to? What sort of challenge did the hybrid cars bring to you as an engineer then?
Yeah, so of course when I started it, also the hybrid was kind of new to everybody, really. And as you're aware, you have some like homologated maps that you can use, like a strategy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was about how to use that strategy as best as possible, really. And that was kind of the major difference. Of course, technically those cars, they have like less suspension travel, they're heavier and all this kind of thing, which is another technical challenge, let's say. But on pure hybrid side, yeah, the main thing is the strategy and to pick the correct strategy for the stage. You kind of have like two modes, like deploy and regen. So you need to choose how best to use that. If you've got a stage with high grip, then you can probably be quite aggressive. But if you've got a stage which is fairly low grip, then if you're if you're quite aggressive, especially for like regen and things, it can make the braking quite tricky. And then again on deploy, it can make the car not so smooth to drive, let's say, in some respects. So there's really an onus on that, especially on the recce of the engineers as well, to kind of see what you feel would be best for that stage. But I believe also the mapping of the hybrid by all teams has moved forward, especially since 2 years ago when it first started. So they're quite far along advanced now, and using different ways to use the hybrid, let's say, without going into so much detail. And again, it's a bit of a shame in a way that the hybrid's going away. I think at the very beginning, many people didn't really want it, it's fair to say, or understand it so well. But now that the system is reliable, it's quite a shame that they're choosing to go away from that. But yeah, I think personally from my side, I wouldn't say the Rally 1 was the pinnacle or the best, one of the best eras. Again, as I said, for me personally, the 17 car was the best era, but for sure, still, it's been an interesting car to see on the stages, and another interesting technical challenge for the teams and the engineers and everyone.
Presumably, from an engineering perspective, you would have much preferred it if you or each team were permitted to develop its own hybrid system rather than a sort of homologated off the peg one, as it were, despite the extra money that would have entailed.
I'd say yes and no. I think if you see how complicated these hybrid systems are and how much technology is inside them, I think to be able to produce something that's reliable, which is the main thing, would be like very tricky. And I think the first year, all the manufacturers kind of cut a bit of slack to the hybrid company to kind of make it reliable and work with them a lot. And as you've seen in the past couple of years, there's been like kind of no moaning that nobody's got hybrid, or that the hybrid's shut off, or they've had some error or whatever, which obviously went on quite a lot in the first year. So again, I think it would have been tricky to do a system for sure on your own. You would have to have worked with Williams or some company that knows what they're doing. But again, I think it's fair that everybody has the same system. And nobody could take some advantage, let's say, from developing their own system. So,
at what stage did you come into the Yaris Rally2 program, Lewis? Were you in right at the start, or did you join it as it had already started development?
Yeah, so basically, the beginning of any car starts in the design office, basically. So there's kind of meetings and things that go on, and you look at the regulations and you decide a layout. Okay, engine's going to be here, and we can position the rear diff in this position, and the suspension, right? We want to have this, that, and the other characteristics, and this kind of thing. So cars kind of designed at the very beginning in the design office, and then I kind of came along when the car was let's say mid-design, and then there was obviously like weekly and almost daily meetings then with designers who are doing different systems of the car to explain their ideas, and you can give feedback about what you think and that kind of thing. And of course, after a while, when you've seen many different rally cars from different manufacturers and that kind of things, you have an idea of what works and what doesn't work, let's say. So I wasn't involved at the very first pen to paper, let's say, but it was kind of in the middle of the design process, so there was still a lot of time to have some influence. But again, the Yaris, as you know, it's born from the road car, the Yaris GR road car, which already gives some nice features, let's say, to use, with a composite roof and aluminium door panels and this kind of things, which was something nice that the regulations allows us to carry over. And again, it's not a secret, one of the biggest things that we wanted to do was to have as much suspension travel as possible. So we have like massive amount of suspension travel on gravel, more than any rally car ever, almost, I think is fair to say. Of course, Rally 1 is limited to 270 odd millimeter. Rally 17 car, I think, was around 300 millimeter. I need to check, but yeah, on gravel, we are like a massive amount more than any other rally car almost ever, I'd say. And again, on tarmac, we have a massive amount of damper travel. So it's quite ready for the Irish roads in that respect, let's say. So that was one of the big design goals that we wanted, was suspension travel. And then again, the basics of center of gravity, lowest inertia as possible. So they were almost the main features. And again, the base car allowed us to have some other nice features as well, which aids to have a nice rally car in terms of engine positions and this kind of thing. So all those ideas kind of get thrown around at the beginning while the design is still going on to allow that to go on in the back of the designers' minds. And of course, you have some idea about, or some number about, what the center of gravity will be or what the inertia will be, which is all calculated. And of course, you never really know your true value until you get the car in real life and you start to do measurements, basically. And we were, let's say, we had the nice luxury that we also tried to do the development, I would say, properly, and tried to compare ourselves to other cars as well. Obviously, the new Skoda RS, the old Skoda Evo, the Volkswagen, the Citroen. So we took all those cars at various times of the development to do sometimes pure things like drag racing, or dynos, or chassis dyno, or speed gun analysis, or driving on the stage to really compare the product that we already had. And in fact, we kind of did, I would say, 3 almost completely different cars throughout the development, as well, as we kind of found new ideas or new directions that we wanted to go in. So completely different suspension systems or different specs of engine and this kind of thing. So again, we had a nice time scale. We had really enthusiastic people to work with, which allowed us to push forward. And of course, there was a lot of late nights by many people, but this allowed us to not stop, basically, and to bring all these new ideas to the surface, instead of just saying, oh no, that's going to be quite a lot of work, let's leave that one for future development. We really pushed to try to get the kind of best car we can from the beginning. So yeah, I could talk all day on that side, but for sure, it's nice to be involved in this project, and it's quite in infancy, basically, and then following it all the way through.
What are there advantages with the 3-cylinder engine, or how does it affect your design process? Does it bring you positives, or are there any drawbacks to it compared with the 4-cylinder in this application?
Yeah, I think again, it's fair to say that the engine is from the GR Yaris road car. It's the same engine, the same turbo, even. And with some even light modifications, we are able to make it very competitive within the class. Of course, it brings some challenges as well. Being a 3-cylinder, it's obviously not as balanced as a 4-cylinder would be. So there was for sure some challenges there to bring it up to the same level, or the level that we would expect, let's say. But in terms of like performance and power and torque and this kind of thing, again, we were constantly comparing ourselves against the main competitors in the class. As I said, whether that be on a chassis dyno or drag racing and this kind of thing. And from there, you can take the torque curve and the power curve and gain a lot of information from those engines, and then use that to basically gain what you want. So again, there's kind of no major disadvantages or major advantages as such, and it's kind of any engine you can, within the rules, fit to make work. And I think that's another good thing that the FIA have done in this class, is that I was at a rally there 2 weeks ago in Spain, the first round of the Spanish Championship, and on one stage there was 3 cars, 3 different drivers, 3 different manufacturers, all within like 0.7 of a second in like 20 Ks or something. And I think that says everything about the regulations, that you can produce a car which is so close. And again, that goes for engine regulations to chassis, to everything. so yeah, there's been lots of talk about the 3-cylinder. Why is it a 3-cylinder? It's less power. It sounds bad. It's this. It's that. It's the other. But I think it's already proved from the beginning that it's competitive, and there's kind of no difference really. The only difference is the sound, and that's what takes getting used to. But hopefully, for the next couple of years, it'll become a sound which is a lot more normal to everyone, and yeah, maybe we'll even see some more 3-cylinder cars out there. But you've also got the Peugeot Rally4, which is 3-cylinder, as you probably know. And that was the same at the very beginning. People were saying, oh, it's not going to have enough power, and it's this, and it sounds strange, and this, that, and the other. But again, it's one of the successful cars in the class as well. So
that thing sounds downright raucous.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
I really like how that sounds.
Yeah. Unmistakable.
Yeah. It's nice to have some bit of variety in the class as well.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
not-
Looking ahead to the British Rally Championship this season coming, do you get a certain or more satisfaction from running a car like the Yaris that obviously you've had a key role in developing on home turf, as it were? You know, is it a challenge you look forward to perhaps slightly more than others?
Yeah, for sure. I think again, it's quite fair to say that rally in the UK for the last quite a few years, let's say, has been quite how can I put this correctly? Not where it should be, really.
Diplomatic.
That's quite sad. It's quite sad from my side, and as I just explained, I've been in this industry a while, but I've never had any customers in the UK. Even when I was private, never like any proper customers, really. And that was always quite sad. So to see now this entry of the first rally with 50 cars and everybody trying to put a lot of effort, I think it's really nice. And again, I go around the world to lots of different national championships, and you see the effort that they put on and the sponsors that they have and that kind of thing. And you think, well, why can't we do the same? You know. So hopefully now this is the start of something that can become bigger and bigger. And for sure, from a personal level, it's nice, and there's some level of pride there to see a car that you've worked on be then on home soil and hopefully fight for the win. So for sure on that side, it's nice. But again, also going a bit back to the job itself is, unfortunately, you go around the world and you can say to most people in most countries, okay, my job is I'm an engineer, I work in rally. Oh, rally cars, yeah. Oh, yeah, I know, yeah. But in the UK, okay, of course, I know Ireland's different, but in the UK, you go and you say you work in rally and they don't know what it is. And you have to kind of explain it's like F1, but off-road and all this. And it's terrible. So I think it's also down to we've never had closed roads rallies until the last couple of years. And of course, in Ireland, it's quite normal that somebody knocks on your door and says the road's going to be closed in 2 months' time because there's a rally car going to come past. And that was also true in Spain, in France, in Italy, and most of Europe and most of the world, really. It's been normal since everybody was young. But in UK, it's never been normal. So I think that's also contributed to it as well.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? You can be in Buith Wells for a rally, and unless you happen to see something traversing a road section, you'd be completely unaware that there's something going off in a Forestry Commission road about 5 miles away.
Exactly.
It must make you feel how long it's been since the glory days of multiple British rally champions and all that, you know.
It's quite sad, but hopefully it's the start of something new, and especially with closed roads rally now obviously being allowed, and we're getting more and more now. So hopefully it also starts to entice more people to come back to the UK as they also used to.
Mm-hmm.
Looking to the proposed changes to the WRC from the FIA's working group, naturally enough, they've also put in place a Rally2 Plus kit. Now you're still in the midst of the development cycle of the Yaris, but now there's been some, maybe is there more work landing on your plate, or how does that feel? How does that proposal feel to you, and how do you think it'll affect the class?
Yeah, so let's say it's still quite fresh for us and for everyone. And to be honest, we don't know a lot more about it than you guys, really, because there's no real regulation or anything yet. There's kind of this press release. So to be honest, on our side, there's not so much more we can we know or we can do, let's say. So
Mm-hmm.
for sure, it's something different. Let's say it's something interesting. Whether the class needed it or not, I don't know. And again, many years ago, we used to have like an R5 Plus. I don't know if you ever remember, but Sport used to do one, and it was in Paraguay, and there was some national championships you could run it, but it wasn't really popular at all, to be honest, and was more kind of gentleman drivers using it more than anything. But of course, now the FIA want to force this into WRC2, or what will become the new WRC2. So yeah. And then again, with the idea to change a bit Rally 1 as well, the pyramid becomes, the FIA pyramid becomes a bit of a strange shape, let's say. With then obviously Rally 4 doesn't really have a place in WRC arena. Then you have the Rally 3, okay, which seems to be more and more successful. You'll then have like Rally 2 Plus, but then Rally 1, which will be closer to Rally 2 Plus. So it's all a bit jumbled up. But yeah, either way, for sure, there's some more work coming, and there will be some more work coming to kind of fit to these rules. And again, it's not 100% exact what the regulation will be, or the final regulation will be. It's just more intention than anything else. And again, whether the class needs it or not, I'm not 100% sure. But let's see next year. Time will tell.
Yeah, they're still being quite vague on what those changes are going to be. So they haven't even have they put a timeline in place yet for them to actually release any sort of regulation for the proposed changes?
Yeah, I think we'll know in a few more months' time. But again, it's not 100% if it will be paddle shift or not, or if it will be big exhaust, I think was another one that they said. Or
different aero as well, right?
Aero, yeah. So they've kind of come back for consultation with the manufacturers, and then it will kind of go forward from there. But yeah, let's say there's not so much more to comment on that side, as there's not really so much of a regulation. Of course, we have to adapt and consider that in the development plan for this year. And then again, if it will be pure WRC 2 class, yes, but then they'll probably, people in the national championships will also maybe adopt it as well. For example, I don't know, in Ireland or in wherever, might decide, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Everybody needs to have a plus kit. So again, and they're trying to do it within a budget, which seems quite reasonable for a customer. And again, if it's possible to produce something within that budget, we need to see, and time will see. I think time will tell, I think.
Yeah, I've had a figure of like €5,000 banded around or something, which struck me as very low, and if not, if not, unrealistically reasonable. But I'd like to be proved wrong.
Yeah, I think to do those that kit of items for €5,000 is
fiberglass, fiberglass wings.
Yeah, exactly. But it goes back to the spirit of Rally 2 and the whole idea of Rally 2. And again, the same when you do a car, and as I touched on earlier, it's not just about performance. Performance is, of course, important, but we could have copied many things from Rally 1, but they are, let's say, not customer friendly or easy to work with, easy to maintain. So yeah, for sure, you can take like massive risks, and on performance side you gain, but on commercial side and customer side on this type of thing, it's some customers want a car they can just jump in, turn on, away they go. You'll have some customers who's a full-on professional team with every single spare part in their truck, and again, you need to cater for everyone. And also from the engineering side, when we did the car, we kind of got together with some other colleagues that had worked on other Rally 2 cars, let's say, and we said, right, okay, what are the good and the bad of all the cars, and what do we want to have in our car? What's the positives and what's the negatives? And let's try and do less of the negatives and more of the positives, and bring our car to the next level and to the future, and try to bring our car to be the next one to beat, let's say, and the next reference. And to do that again is quite tricky because you again have a price cap. So if you want to, let's say, stick to the rules and not bend this price cap and that kind of things, it's like really, really tricky to do. And I think that was one of the biggest challenges. It's quite easy to go out there and make a fast car. You can do all these exotic things and exotic materials, but then again, you need to look back at the regulation. Oh, we can't do that. Oh, we can't do this. With a constant view in the back of your mind that this needs to last X amount of kilometers for a customer, where maybe in Rally 1 you change it every service, but this part, for example, needs to last 1,000 kilometers or 2,000 kilometers. And again, it's not just professional teams. You need to consider that you'll have a team, again, who just jump in, start the car, they drive 1,000 kilometers, don't spanner check it, don't do nothing, and expect nothing to fall off. So we need to be at that level also. So for me, in some ways, it's much harder doing a Rally 2 car than it is a Rally 1, because there's a lot more factors to think about. And then again, it's not just the engineering or the design side. There's the whole commercial side and support side and giving constant information and updates to the customers and this side of things. And that again is something quite tricky to get right and to get a good balance, basically. And to also continually develop the car and make it faster. So okay, we've homologated in January, but we don't stop working. You know, we have many tests planned this year, many things that we want to improve on and develop and make faster. And again, whether that be small upgrades like a new damper valving or new geometry or whatever, or if it's something larger or something that needs to be homologated, again, if you stop, everybody just catches up and overtakes you. And I think that's some teams in the past have been victims of that for sure. And yeah, so the fun never stops. It goes on and on for sure.
Lots of plates in the air.
Yeah.
Before we start to wrap up, Lewis, what do you think will be the toughest test of your car coming up this year now as it starts to compete on more events and it goes out to more customers?
Toughest test. Toughest test is actually for ourselves when we have more and more customers to be able to support and help more and more customers. But for the car itself, I think on all surfaces the car is strong. There's no area that we are really worried about, let's say, for reliability or performance. Our test schedule and plan was like very thorough. We did around 20 test sessions, around 15,000 kilometers on all types of surface, of course, tarmac, gravel, snow, but all different types of gravel. To some places where it's extremely rough. There's a place down in the south of France called Fonjoncous, which is it's where everyone goes really to test their rally car to destruction. It's kind of a Dakar testing ground, you could say. It's like super rough. And the most difficult thing there is actually to keep the tires on the car, because they do like one lap of this place and the tire's completely gone. So we go there to like beat the car to destruction, basically, and we just like add fuel and get the car to drive around until something falls off. So we went there twice really to try to kill the car. So we've been on, let's say, extremely rough gravel, which we think the car is actually really strong, because again, it goes back to our suspension travel and the design of our geometries and that kind of thing gives the car good stability and good protection. I think that's already been commented as a strong point by many of the drivers that have driven it. And again, that also goes into second pass of rallies like your Portugal or Sardinia, where it gets super rough. The car should be quite strong there. And then again, we've tested on high grip tarmac, low grip tarmac. Barham, we actually went and tested on the Semetin stage, which, if you know, is probably like one of the bumpiest stages in the world. So he said, okay, we want to do like a proper Barham car, or we want to check that we've got our dampers right. Okay, let's go to Semetin. So we went to Semetin and drove there. And we got a local Czech driver to help us. And he drove the car and he said, yeah, okay, this is it. And off we went. So we tried to do a thorough test in kind of every condition, really. And of course, being based in Uvascular and quite close to some of the best stages in the world as well, even in the winter and in the summer, that's also aided us to kind of just nip out and do a day or two's testing if we need to, or if we need to check something, we can arrange something quite quickly, and away we go. So we had that luxury as well. So I wouldn't say that there is anything that we're particularly worried about, or that's going to be a big challenge for the car. The biggest challenge actually at the moment is to produce the cars as fast as possible, because as you can imagine, there's quite a big demand at the moment, which is a nice problem to have. But of course, it's a process of trying to not disappoint as many people as possible, and trying to get the car out there with the right drivers in the right championships, and show the car is fast, and start to get the car to win, basically, which we've already had quite a good start, I'd like to say. So yeah, we'll have more of that as we get more cars out there, and more people get to enjoy it, basically.
So, Lewis, if I wanted one and I was going to put a deposit down, sadly, not that I am, but if I was in a position to do that, how quickly could I expect delivery of my new Yaris?
Let's say it's not 100% on my side, that one. I like to say I'm just an engineer. I'm not commercial, but yeah, I believe we're quite full for this year, and I think we're already taking orders for next year as well. So again, it's a nice problem to have, but I think the same as the other manufacturers, it's very tricky to make more than one car per week, unless you have some kind of crazy production schedule with a lot of people. I think it's quite common now that many manufacturers are producing one car per week, and I think one thing that's really, really nice about our sport and about Rally 2 class in general is that there's a lack of cars, and due to the compared to the demand. So everybody wants our Rally 2 car, but nobody can get one, whether it be a Skoda or a Hyundai or a Ford. It's tricky to get a Rally 2 car. You know, if you want one tomorrow, there's a big waiting list wherever you go, and I think that speaks volumes about our sport, and I think it's really, really, really nice, and let's hope that continues for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, be a bit patient yet, Adam.
I've got time, don't worry. Gives me more time
you've
to
got the
save
205 to work on. You've got the 205.
Yeah, exactly. One step at a time. Let's not go crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Lewis, thanks ever so much for coming on. It's been great hearing you chat and answering our questions. Oh, and Adam has one more question.
Yeah, I've got one more question, Lewis. If you could engineer any car and any driver in the history of the WRC, what would it be?
Oh, it's quite a tricky one, really.
And where?
Where?
No, yeah, where? There you go.
Yeah, let's say I have there's been quite a lot of favorite rallies around the world for sure. Not just WRC rallies, there's lots of nice national championships, national rallies, which maybe don't get as much publicity, which they should do, especially in South America. There's some really beautiful rallies, which nobody really gets to see. And again, let's say for cars, okay, I think we all had a fascination for the Volkswagen and always wanted to see, let's say, the Polo WRC and its pinnacle, what that car was like. So for sure, it would have been enjoyable to run one of those cars. And let's say drivers wise, again, I've worked with quite a few of them, let's say now. So even again, it could be Seb in the Volkswagen, probably in Finland or in New Zealand or somewhere like that, some kind of beautiful rally. Yeah, I think that would be quite nice to see, especially from an engineer inside the Polo, to see how it worked and what the specialty things for it were. And yeah, that would have been nice.
Cool.
Great answer.
Good answer, yeah.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck for the upcoming year. You've got an incredibly busy year ahead. I imagine you're going to be on the plane quite a lot, and hopefully fielding lots of calls to happy customers on events. And yeah, best of luck for the upcoming season, and for in this weekend. Now we'll see the Castrol liveried Yaris on the Northwest stages, which would be. It's also nice to see Castrol make a return to Toyota, so I think everyone's very excited about that. So we'll see how Evans gets on in that machine at the weekend.
That's great. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm sure I'll meet you all very soon on some rally somewhere.
Thanks, Lewis.
Nice one. Thanks, Lewis.
All the best.
Bye bye.